You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the capitalist corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the capitalist corner.
Everybody, welcome to your island of rationality in a sea of irrationality, the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who also has his own fantastic show, The Rational Egoist, an ethics that we are trying to spread throughout the world to counter the evil effects of altruism and all that it implies. Michael, what's going on your show? I'm sure something that is a requirement for people to see.
Great episode out. The first episode in the series that Jim Valiant and I are doing of applying OPAR, objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand, to self-improvement. We did the episode in the first chapter about reality. Great episode. They're going to love it. And I've got a surprise for you right now and for the audience. At 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time today, I will be debating an anarcho-capitalist on Rand v. Rothbard on rights on this very show. You got to go click that link, but you click it and you'll get there. Oh, Persephone and Mark, Subby said hello. I forgot to tell you.
Thank you very much for that. First, I have to give our disclaimer that we are not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party. If you want to know what the Capitalist Party is all about, please go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, read the policies, and become a member. Be a part of the change, folks. I'm most people, if you were to poll them, somewhere in the neighborhood of 60%. I'm sort of pulling that number out of my ass, but somewhere in that neighborhood are dissatisfied with the status quo. They simply don't have the answers for how to cure what ails us at the moment. But we think we at the American Capitalist Party do, that objectivism as a philosophy does, and we hope to promote those ideas in the world today to make it a better place because we care about human thriving. We want you to be independent individuals, folks. You have your own moral agency. You should be able to exercise it, not some bureaucrat in Washington. Now, apparently, Michael, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will, we have super chats.
We have super chats, yes.
So, folks, I encourage you not only to like and subscribe to this station and to share it across all media platforms because the algorithms like that, but please do use the super chat device liberally. Michael and I both don't know what that means exactly, but I'm sure maybe Michael, I'm speaking for you. Am I projecting my own ignorance onto you?
No, I have no clue. I don't know what the hell to do with these
We
things.
don't know what it means, folks, but use it, and Persephone will sort it out for us because she's the brains of the operation when it comes to tech and all things that keep this show running. So, Michael, you wanted to talk briefly before we get into some of the news today, which is going to include Ted Cruz and the rebellious Marjorie Taylor Greene. You wanted to talk about how irritated you are this morning.
I'm not irritated by these super chats we already got coming in from Bonnie Bertrand and from Professor Kraken.
Thank you, Professor Kraken.
I believe that's what's happening, right? Those are super chats, Persephone. Okay, so we understand that much. So let me just tell you this. First of all, I'm getting over being sick. So that in itself is enough.
You can thank me. You can thank me for the fact that the Zicam has reduced your symptoms and the length of your symptoms, so you were only sick for a few days.
Yeah. What about the symptoms that it gave me that I didn't previously
You're welcome.
have?
You're welcome.
Let's not get into that.
Your intestinal upset is your own problem.
Great. We now have one coming from Katrin Kohler, a super chat.
Thank you,
so anyways,
Katrin,
Katrin, I'm aggravated. So let me tell you so I haven't been sleeping, so that is more aggravation. So I've got this debate coming up, so I have to prepare for that, and I had to prepare for this show. I also had to go to Windsor this morning, which is a good 20-minute drive there, back, and I got to go there and take pictures and this and that. So that's what I start with. So my day, and I had to work out. My day's time crunched.
Thank you, Nicole.
Right? So when we get interference with my time, it becomes very aggravating. So the first thing that happens, I come back, I come home, and I'm getting ready. It's at 2:00 today, Eastern time. So I put in my laundry in the wash, and I leave, and I set it on heavy duty, which gives me an hour and a half. This is at 9:00 when I'm leaving for Windsor. So this means 10:30, it'll be ready to go. No, that's not what happens. Unbeknownst to me, the SUD message comes on. Okay, that's annoying in and of itself. My laundry's going to take longer. But then it starts doing this beeping thing every 30 seconds. Now, I'm trying to focus, right? I'm trying to study for the debate. And every 30 seconds, ding, 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 you know, it's enough to make you lose your mind. On top of it all, there's stuff in the dryer that was left in the dryer that Subby didn't tell me about. So I got to fold that stuff. So I fold that stuff. Meanwhile, my stuff is still not washed. I had to ultimately turn it off because it's going to be beeping and driving me crazy. Then Subby came home because he's got problems at work. So now he's here running around. That gets the dogs wound up. They come running in here, pounding and stomping and everything else. And then I've got people that are challenging me on X. And, you know, sometimes I get impatient, right? I expect people to know. I expect people to understand. And, you know, when I'm in a decent mood, I don't mind and I'll take the time to explain. But when I'm aggravated, it's like, you know what I mean? The aggravation goes up. Then I get a text from somebody who tells me, hey, is the, while I'm studying and all this is going, hey, is the thumbnail up for today's episode? Yeah.
Who did that?
Yeah. The thumbnail is up for today's episode. The text comes back, dude, I'm not seeing it anywhere. Took me all of 5 seconds to go get the thumbnail and text it back to him. But now that's a good 2 minutes that's been taken from my time.
What cheeky bastard stole those 2 minutes from your day, Michael?
You did.
Okay. So hey, wait, are you going to continue complaining, or can I address some of these comments here in the chat? Because
Deeper with Diego is the man, huh? You can do whatever you'd like.
Thank you, sir. $20. Thank you, sir, for your $20. That's awesome.
Are we supposed to say how much they give, Persephone? No.
Well, it doesn't it show it? Adam 1675.
I don't know what it shows.
Asks again, when is the debate? So will you please?
She didn't ask again. She asked once, and I already answered it. I told her 2:00 today.
Okay, well that was 2 minutes ago. So you were already.
She didn't ask again. That's when she asked.
Okay, so 2:00 today. All right, fine. Any other issues, Michael, before we hit the political stuff that's going on in the world today? Because I find it very interesting that some people from the MAGA movement are jumping ship for certain reasons that we'll talk about in a moment. And I'd like to get into those. If you're done venting, that is.
What do you mean?
Are you done venting?
Yeah, I'm done venting. You asked me what was going on, so I told you.
Okay. So here we go. So Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote a rather long post on X, and I'm going to read this post actually word for word because I think it's important. But what was more telling to me, Michael, than the post was the MAGA reaction to the post. Which was pretty awful. I don't know if you saw some of the commentary.
I've seen.
Yeah, it was very, very dismissive, calling her basically a liar and a cheat and a grifter, and that she's getting back what she's given in the past. So here's what Marjorie Taylor Greene says in this post: "The hoax pizza deliveries have started now to my house and my family members. Update, we also received a pipe bomb threat on my construction company's office building. President Trump's unwarranted and vicious attacks against me were a dog whistle to dangerous radicals that could lead to serious attacks on me and my family." Incidentally, he called her a traitor. Now, this is a very serious thing for the President of the United States to call an American citizen and a sitting congressperson. So it is something to be taken very seriously. She goes on to say, "Unfortunately, I've been down this road before. As a matter of fact, as I campaigned all over the country and defended President Trump, I received dozens of swatting calls on my house and my family members' homes, along with these hoax pizza deliveries. But even more severely, I have received some of the most death threats of any member of Congress that led to multiple serving time in prison, which is apparently so. This is just not an empty accusation on her part. And all of that came from the left. Now that President Trump has called me a traitor, which is absolutely untrue and horrific, Mark Levin has been calling me a traitor. That's frightening. I haven't seen that, but I'm sure that's easily confirmable. And so have other prominent, likely paid social media activists. This puts blood in the water and creates a feeding frenzy, and it could ultimately lead to a harmful or even deadly outcome. Also, the timing of this just happens to be days before we take the vote on releasing the Epstein files. I love America, she says, and the American people, and I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution and always will do so. This is questionable, of course. I am not a traitor. However, when the President of the United States irresponsibly calls a member of Congress of his own party a traitor, he is signaling what must be done to a traitor. I fought harder than anyone else to help President Trump get elected, and I support his administration and the promises we made on the campaign. I am a Republican in good standing and have paid all of my dues to the NRCC. My voting record is one of the most conservative voting records in Congress, and I'm very proud of that. The toxic and dangerous rhetoric in politics must end, and we need healing in this country for all Americans. What say you to this?
I say Jim Valiant I'm going to open up a can of whoop ass on him in about 30 seconds. That's what I have to say. Jim tells us in the chat now, do the super chatters, the amount donated, and read the comment or question. They deserve that much. Now, 2 posts ago, someone else tells us, hey, wait till the end to read the super chats and then do it. So neither of us knows what the hell's going on. So now we've just got what they call too many Indians, not too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
Well, let me just tell James something. There has been no question. There have just been stickers and nice donations.
He knows. You can see the chat, Mark.
So far as I've seen, no questions. Well, of course, we would read those questions right off the bat if there is a question attached to the super chat, Michael. Yes. That's just common courtesy.
No, I don't think you read it off the bat. I think you wait.
Okay, you can do that. I'm going to read it off. I'm going to read it off the bat. But you need to answer this question. What do you think about Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I've never been able to stand her. I've always thought she was a nut. Now, recently, she's been coming off as reasonable and apologetic. The problem is she's a politician. So you don't know. Oh, James says we can. It doesn't matter when we do it, as long as we do it. So I don't know if it's sincere or not because she's a politician. But I do find it interesting, that she's talking about what's happening to her when in the past she's been the one promoting this garbage and this toxic rhetoric that comes out of this White House and this whole MAGA movement. I think that these people are just nuts with this traitor stuff, and this is a traitor, that's a traitor. Go look at see how my aggravation is coming. Look at the Constitution for what a traitor is, and look at what the freaking penalty is. You call somebody a traitor, you're literally calling for their potential death. Like, have some more class, have some more intelligence, be reasonable, for God's sake.
I do not associate reasonable political discourse with Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's for sure. But do you think in this case the turnabout is fair play in the sense that now that she's had a little bit of her own medicine, maybe she will start reducing the toxicity of her own rhetoric?
But she already has. She's been
right and been on CNN.
Yeah, but is that strategy? That's the question. Yes, treason is defined in the Constitution. When you call somebody a traitor, you're accusing them of treason, Jim. Yeah, she's doing that, but she's a politician, so you just don't know. Does she have an angle?
Yes, I think she does have an angle, and that is her own political preservation. I mean, I think that's essentially what animates every person in the political world today, including Trump's response, which has been to what? Release all the Epstein files. Now, Michael, this is an interesting scenario to me. Because he can now say, I'm going to release all the Epstein files, which I've been delaying for ages and ages and ages, and the rumors have been circulating that I mentioned all through the files.
Did you see what was mentioned about him and Bubba?
No.
Come on.
I didn't see that. What happened between him and Bubba? Did they have a threesome?
So evidently there's an email from Mark Epstein to his brother Jeff that says something to the effect of, has Putin found out that Trump blew Bubba, or is he holding that over his head? Or...
Come on. Wow. That's something I can't unsee. And I'm sure.
So you didn't see the thing? Didn't I send you the
You
clip
might
with
have,
Alex
but
Jones?
you might have. Oh, yes. You did send me the thing with Alex Jones.
What do you think he was talking about?
Well, it's Alex Jones. Who knows what the hell he's talking about? He's talking about whatever comes off of the top of his head. It might not be related to reality at all. But Michael,
I got a point there.
I think the interesting thing about Trump releasing the Epstein files now is that now he can sort of claim both sides. He can say, look, I did what I promised I was going to do on the campaign trail, but now it's in the hands of the Department of Justice and the FBI. And of course, they can drag this thing out for years and years and years, release thousands and thousands of pages of stuff that we already know, heavily redacted, and we will still never get to the bottom of Trump's involvement in the Epstein issue. Never get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter ultimately if they release it and there's nothing in there, whatever there's not in there about whomever somebody wants there to be something about, whether it be Trump, Democrats, whatever, they're going to say that they've been scrubbed, they're being hidden, we're being lied to. It really doesn't make a difference. The thing that I find funny is you got all these quotes from MAGA, from Kash Patel, from Don Jr. talking about how the Epstein files need to be released and blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden they're saying it's a Democrat hoax. And there's people dumb enough to fall for that. So whatever. I don't feel bad for any of them, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. I feel bad for me, and I feel bad for you, and maybe Persephone if she behaves herself.
Well, what you feel bad for is innocent people who happen to be crushed in the gears of these political parasites who are only interested in gaining and keeping power.
Yeah.
That's all they care about. So Marjorie Taylor Greene has a little bit of a turnabout here, apparently a philosophical turnabout, but I doubt that that's what's really happening. What she's really trying to do is shore up some kind of support and angle for greater power. That's what these people do. They don't really have the interests of the American people in their hearts and minds. They're not really trying to protect individual rights. Her support of the Trump platforms from the beginning proved that. Her support for Trump as he extended the powers of the executive well beyond their constitutional limits proved that she is not there to actually protect the Constitution.
We have a super chat here that I'm actually going to show it because he actually has a comment and it's relevant to what we're saying. And this is true that Ghislaine Maxwell has a horse named Bubba as well. So the question is the text or the email referring to the horse or to Bill Clinton? There's also some speculation that this is the source of the animosity that Trump has toward Clinton, toward Hillary, because he was having a thing with Bill. Now, look, the only reason I find it funny because I know this is driving Trump crazy, right?
Yes.
The idea that this is out there, no matter how silly, how stupid it is, it's driving him nuts. And that I take some enjoyment in. Juvenile enjoyment, maybe. Not good.
Well, I got to say,
probably,
Michael, I do
but
too.
Enjoyment nonetheless.
I do too, because Trump is the ultimate second-hander. And for anybody who is an objectivist, knows what second-hander means. For you who are not objectivists, a second-hander is somebody who gets their self-evaluation and evaluation of the facts of reality from other people. They don't really have thoughts of their own. They don't really think through what other people are telling them. They just sort of absorb by osmosis what other people are saying and adopt that as their angle. And the idea that Trump is so miffed about the fact that somebody is saying he got on his knees to President Clinton and wrapped his thin lips around that Peyronie's diseased penis it does.
How do you know he has Peyronie's?
It came out. It came out, man. It came out in all the depositions against him for the sexual harassment suits that were against him. Thank you, Ra Hasman, for the 21 super chat. One-upping Diego, congrats on gaining super chats. Thank you, man. We really appreciate you as a viewer. Your constant presence here is a real support to us. Thank you so much for that.
I can't. So you must not have been online lately, huh?
I've only been posting dog pictures online and occasionally responding to.
Because they've got pictures, and I didn't understand it at first. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? I'm looking. They got a picture of Bill Clinton sitting at his desk in the Oval Office, and it says, I was this many years old when I found out there's actually 2 living presidents in this picture. And I hadn't heard yet about Trump. So I'm zooming in, looking for the statues. I'm looking for pictures in the background. Now I get it.
Oh, my Lord. That's great. People are so clever, folks. Even though we live, I think, in probably the most ridiculous times in history. We also
I don't know. Have you ever seen the cartoons
we
about
also live in great times?
Marie Antoinette in the situation with Louis back then, the comic books they were putting out and stuff. People are ridiculous. We always have been.
That's true. So you sent me an article from Axios about Ted Cruz. It looks like Ted Cruz is angling for the 2028 election. Of course, he's going to be fighting against J.D. Vance. I think, Michael, that, look, Trump's pragmatism could save him in the sense that he starts to take away tariffs when he sees that it's really aggravating the population because it's raising grocery prices and other prices. He starts to pull back on his ridiculous, economically ignorant policies. But I get the sense that by 2028, we're going to see, if he gets his way in anything with respect to monetary policy, a sort of economic collapse. We're going to see bubbles bursting all over the place, and I don't know that J.D. Vance will.
Bubba bursting all over.
Bubba bursting all over the place, and I'm not sure J.D. Vance will have much legitimacy at that point. I think people will be ready to move on from a nationalist, the nationalist Christian agenda and isolationism as the Republicans see it. So Cruz has to distance himself from this new Republican wing that has basically usurped traditional conservatism, which was supposed to be the defense of classical liberalism. And I think Cruz's stance on interventionism certainly is not a classically liberal perspective. So what do you think his chances are in 2028? I think he's revealed himself to be one of those pragmatic dickheads.
He has.
Who first appeared to be principled, but he's really not principled at all.
So I think the Republican Party that he wants to represent is gone. That's all there is to it. I think the Groypers are the future of the Republican Party, at least a large swath of it. And I think Ted Cruz had an opportunity, and I think he blew it badly. In 2016, he was in a feud with Trump, and initially he wouldn't endorse him. And then he made a political calculation, and he endorsed Trump. After everything Trump said about him, his father, his wife, knowing Trump was no good, knowing that Trump was not a good president, knowing he wasn't a conservative, he endorsed him, and then he's proceeded to defend him damn near incessantly. So he does look like just a typical pragmatic politician that will pivot wherever he needs to go in order to get elected. And now he's taking on the Tucker Carlsons in that wing because he wants to appear like he's, got some fight in him. Sorry, dude, you already demonstrated you don't. It's that simple. Had he in 2016 stuck to his guns, kept preaching the limited government, constitutional conservatism that he was preaching back then, the capitalism, because he's well-versed in Austrian economics, had he kept doing that, he may have gotten primaried, he may have lost an election for senator, but he would have positioned himself as the principled candidate. And the never-Trumpers, a lot of them would have swarmed to him. Now, he's just your average dickhead politician.
Unfortunately, Michael, there's no incentive in politics to look beyond the next election cycle. So he would have lost the battle for sure by standing for principle. But in the end, he would have won the war because you're right. The Never Trumpers would have gotten behind him, and they would have had a foundation to stand upon, which they don't so much now. And they would have had a candidate with national appeal that could promote the moral foundation Austrian economics and individual rights. They now don't, and that has now disappeared. Now we have, we have folks like Rand Paul and Massey in there who do fight the status quo, but they're two folks in a sea of Christian nationalist, isolationist Republicans who have ruined the GOP from my perspective. So I agree with you. Setting the stage. Also, I hate this about modern politics, Michael. The fact that when a candidate represents himself as having the ambition to pre-plan that he wants to run for the presidency, I think that should be an automatic disqualifier. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've said in the past that when Hillary Clinton, she was on an interview show and she said, "I just want to be president of the United States," that should have told everybody in America not to vote for her.
Well, it told a lot of people. Oh, by the way,
I don't know. I think that they had personal reasons for it. She's just sort of unlikable to a lot of people. But that particular comment didn't bother them as much as it should have.
Yeah, I think it should bother people when others want power over them. Just for the record, there will be no show Wednesday. On Wednesday, I am headed to the Big Apple to watch a debate on. So I won't be in on Wednesday.
Well, thanks for telling me.
You're welcome.
Did you tell me this before and it just sort of went out of my head?
I don't know. I don't know if you know or not. I was sick, and when I get sick, I get forgetful. I made a post, and I really, this whole thing, these women, everyone talks about childbirth and how painful it is for women to give birth and how men can't understand it. Okay, but I'll tell you what, women can never understand what it's like to be a man with a cold. Let's just be honest about that.
Wow. I did see a post recently that said something like this. Women deal with periods, menopause, and what was the other thing? And pregnancy. What the fuck do men have to deal with? And my instantaneous response was women who have periods, menopause, and pregnancy, which is no easy task.
It's not.
This is not a massage.
Look, we've got one in the chat and in the picture. She's giving us the finger right now, 2 fingers.
This is not a misogynistic statement. It is truly a difficult adjustment that men have to make, and that's okay. It's worth it, at least from my perspective, because of all the wonderful things that women bring to men's lives. I don't think that a man can fully be a man without a woman. That's just me.
Hold on. Do we want to get into that argument?
Why not? Sure.
What about gay men?
Well, let me put it this way then. I think one, of course, has the more female aspects to them. But in other words, you cannot fully.
What does that mean? They still don't have a woman.
You cannot fully actualize yourself, let's just say, without the mirror of a relationship, without a good relationship.
All right.
So let me put it that way. But I was speaking in terms of heterosexual relationships. But you're right. I left out other relationships that are just as legitimate. So you sent me something by Mike, checkmark Mike. Door animated, that Trump shrugs off Tucker's support of Fuentes. Bad call. Now, this was worse than a bad call. If you actually listen to the audio, and I wonder if Persephone can post this or something. Here's what Trump basically says when he's asked about Tucker's interview with Nick Fuentes. It goes something like this, and I will paraphrase. I don't know. I like Tucker. I like him a lot. He likes me. Our interviews went very well, and we got 300 million hits on our interview. Do you realize that?
He says he likes me a lot.
He likes me a lot.
He said good things.
He says good things about me. Okay, it's not just that he's shrugging off Tucker Carlson's support. He's demonstrating his standard of evaluation of other human beings. His standard of evaluation is not about principles or individual rights. It's not about the virtues of honesty or integrity. None of that matters. What matters is how the other guy makes Trump feel loved and accepted and really cool. That's it. So when a guy like Tucker Carlson brings on a douchebag like Nick Fuentes, who is an incredible douchebag.
An incredible one?
Incredible. In the sense that you have to you have to really, really work at being that awful. Like to sit on the Tucker Carlson show and have the first thing come out of your mouth is, "I love Stalin. It's Stalin's birthday."
Well, that wasn't the first thing.
Well, it was the first thing that I saw. Let me just put it that way. And you know what? Tucker sat there with a look like something had been inserted quietly up his anus, and he didn't quite know how to deal with it. You know how he gets that little pursed look in his eyes, or he just sort of seems puzzled, and he didn't know how to deal with that comment. And the way to deal with that comment is, Nick, get the fuck off of my show. That's the way you deal with the comment. Exactly the way. Now, I hate Bill O'Reilly, but during 9/11, Bill O'Reilly brought some guy on right as the buildings were still hot. They'd just fallen. He brought a guy on who blamed the entirety of 9/11 on America. And Bill O'Reilly said, "Get the fuck off of my stage. Get out of here. Get off right now." That's the proper response to a douchebag like Nick Fuentes. And complete social oblivion is actually the proper response to a Holocaust-denying, fascistic, racist incel like that guy. Go ahead.
I'm surprised you know about incels.
I only know about them by watching them on media. So and seeing them like populate Dave Smith's
Yeah, I think that there's a show in there somewhere, Dealing with Douchebags with Mark Pellegrino.
You know how I think one should deal with douchebags.
Oh no.
Okay. I won't say it.
All right, do you have the next story, or you just completely lost focus here?
Well, I have tons of stories here that I can choose.
Yeah, no kidding. But can you get to one?
Yes.
I know you got them. I sent them to you.
Here it is. Here's the one story that I'm going to talk about that I think is very interesting. Of course, because Zoran Mamdani has painted himself as a benevolent human being who just wants to help the underprivileged in New York. Of course, he wants to do it by exploiting the rich, who in his mind have exploited the poor. He wants to assert price controls everywhere. He wants to make every kind of good and service that is under his power free, which means the beneficiaries don't pay, but somebody does. It now turns out that Lina Khan, who is organizing his incoming administration, is busy striving to maximize Mamdani's power. So she used to be the head of the I guess the Federal Trade Commission, was it? And she, of course, using her experience there to find obscure laws that can grow Mamdani's power, because as we mostly know, a great deal of what Mamdani wants to do is subject to the state legislature's approval. So right now they're looking for ways, like Trump is looking for ways, to bypass the legislature and gain complete control over much of the execution of his policies. Now this should be scary to anyone in New York City. If you thought you were voting in a populist who is going to even make his pipe dreams come real, this should scare you. What you really voted in was a guy who is seeking to consolidate power. And if he's consolidating political power in his office, he's depriving you of moral agency. That is a frightening concept. What say you?
Yeah, I think this is the article where Lina Khan, I guess, is working for him. Lina Khan was the former head of the FTC, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And she's big into what's the word I'm looking for here? Interesting interpretations and applications of antitrust law. And what she wants to do is get a lot of things done just simply by executive fiat, by executive order. She wants to empower Mamdani. It's not a good thing. Obviously, it's bad. And interesting, Lina Khan was praised by J.D. Vance in the past, that he liked the work that she did. So, the horseshoe comes together there. Real quickly, we got this here.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to read that. Thank you, Jason Adams, for
when we get a break, we can do them. Jason Adams says, my point to anarcho-capitalists, go try it somewhere uninhabited, ideally a self-funded moon colony, call your rules whatever, but those in charge will still function as a government. Oftentimes, I do find that in reality, they're just talking about a government.
Of course they are. And that's what aggravates me about the anarcho.
But you don't have to be angry, Mark.
I'm not angry. I'm passionate.
You said it aggravates you.
Yeah, it does aggravate me, but aggravation doesn't necessarily mean angry. It just means slightly irritated. I'm slightly irritated at the evasion that, yes, people coming together and organizing a group that is about rules of force is a government, whether you want to call it that or not. You know, what they really hate is that if you call that government a state, which it sort of is. If a state is just a geographic region governed by a certain set of rules, then you're creating a state. Even if it's small, it's still a state, man. Just get over your fear of calling it that, for Christ's sakes.
I don't know what he has to do with this, but okay.
So apparently, Michael, Trump hasn't had much luck with getting people indicted by grand juries, which is apparently a very rare thing. Now, James Valiant would know more about this than I, but apparently, when you go before a grand jury, it's basically the prosecutor setting up grounds that an indictment should follow based on the evidence that they're able to present to grand jury, and there's no counter evidence. There's no defense attorney there, I think, to counter it. So the chances are very slight that the grand jury won't indict. However, Trump has attempted, through the Trump administration, has attempted to indict a number of people under very specious claims of assaulting police officers and ICE officers. And all of these did not meet the conditions of even the loose conditions of a grand jury indictment. And so the majority of them, the vast majority of them, have gotten off. Michael, do you want to talk about some of this? Because some of them are actually
I don't know if your depiction is accurate. I know that three.
I said most of them have gotten off.
Yeah, but I don't think that's true. I think 3 of them have. I don't know the total amount of indictments they've tried to get there. I think there was 6, or there was 3 cited in the article that happened to. But nevertheless, it's one of them threw a sandwich, at federal agents. And this guy evidently worked for the Department of Justice, I think. And then someone from the Trump administration said, see, this is the deep state we're fighting against. Really? If that's our biggest problem, some sandwich throwing bystander, I'm good. I can live with that. And the other one was a claim that the lady was, interfering with federal agents at a protest, some such thing. But the fact that they were unable to get indictments does, in my mind, speak volumes, given how easy it should be to get indictments and how easy it is to get indictments.
I mean, just to give some context to this, Michael, so that the 3 that were mentioned in the article has a little bit more context. Failing to secure a federal indictment even once is extremely rare. In 2016, the Department of Justice prosecuted over 130,000 cases, and a grand jury failed to return an indictment in only 6 of them. So the fact that these things have happened one on top of the other is a testimony to the fact that how specious and ridiculous they are, and how the administration is just reaching as hard as it possibly can to assert its power over people. Protesting, I think, the unlawful execution of immigration laws and the unlawful occupation of these cities and states with federal troops. All of this shit is unlawful as hell and needs to go away as soon as possible. And I have to say, Michael, even though this does not necessarily represent the American Capitalist Party's point of view, as an American capitalist, I would immediately put an end to this bullshit. By the way, I responded to a video tweet message from Mark Ruffalo, who is on the right side of the immigration issue for all of the wrong reasons. At the very end of a long diatribe that was somewhat intelligent about how immigrants actually uplift the country, about how they contribute to the workforce, they lower the cost of living for the rest of us, they invent and innovate things that would never have happened had they not had the opportunity to be here. He went after the billionaires, and he said the real bad guys are the billionaires. I responded by saying, Mark, the real bad guys are the political class. That's the real bad guys. And the fact that they're using billionaires as a scapegoat is just it's just a shift away from millionaires, my friend. So eventually, when they get done with the billionaires, they're going to come for you too. And I just want you to know that your support of eliminating billionaires as a class of human beings will one day redound against you, because economic equality means the dispensation of all of that wealth to people who have less. And Mark, there's lots of people who have less than you. You know, you live in a 5,000 square foot, penthouse apartment in New York City. You probably have multiple homes. You're a multimillionaire. I think you're a very talented actor. You deserve those things. But the very people you're trying to appeal to now with your own demagoguery do not think you deserve those things and will eventually come for you. That's what happened to Robespierre, my friend. It'll happen to you too.
I thought it was demagoguery. Is it demagoguery?
I don't know. I've heard it said both ways.
Either way. I'm in the middle of watching a movie that I think is worse than Mulholland Drive. It's called Substance, and it's with Demi.
Why? Yeah, Demi Moore. Why? She got the Golden Globe for that, I believe, which I thought was horrible.
Yeah, this is like we watched about an hour. We're a little less than halfway through. There's been no conversations. Like, there's no dialogue. It's just all they do is keep showing boobs everywhere you look. I mean, I'm not going to complain about the boobs, but the movie is awful. It's so bad that I want to turn it off, even with all the boobs.
It's bad. But body horror generally is not a pleasant thing to watch. I think it's a very specific genre for people.
That's what this is called, body horror?
The genre is called body horror, yes.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, even though it's making an interesting commentary about the attempt to hold on to youth and the pressure to be young, that especially that celebrities feel, it's done in such a grotesque way, and the execution of the narrative is so awful. And I hate to tell you the end, but the end is
don't tell me. But they got the scene where Dennis Quaid is chewing on shrimp, and like they zoom in.
Of course,
because it's so gross.
Yeah, it's well, not only that, you hear the smacking and the juicy.
Yeah,
it's like deliberately intended to gross you out.
Yeah, it's grotesquerie for the sake of grotesquerie.
Exactly. The whole thing is it's an exercise in bad horror. To me, that's not bad horror. You want to know a good horror film that I just saw yesterday, Michael, that you should
Weapons.
Well, I liked Weapons, but this is better. It's even better. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Watch it on Netflix. 2.5 hours long. It is a beautiful, beautiful story.
A guy just recommended that to me today. He told me you've got to see that. And now that Diana's in the audience, she is the one who made me buy this movie or rent this movie, Substance. Oh, we got to watch The Substance. Got to watch The Substance. She's here. She needs to be.
The reason she's saying that is because it was highly acclaimed by everyone. And this just goes to show you that sometimes there's a social contagion that takes over the culture where they like something that's palpably horrific.
Yes, okay. Like Mulholland Drive. I'm sorry, I know you're in it, but
I don't disagree with you. You know, and I'm not insulted by the fact that you didn't like.
No, because it's pointless movies, just pointless things. Like this.
Look, the film is the film, which was a straight up sort of whodunit and a straight up a straight story, which we know David Lynch is capable of telling because
you pivoted to that one.
No, hold on. The story of Mulholland Drive is supposed to be about a woman who loses her soul in Hollywood. She gets trapped in a Hollywood nightmare, and that's why it's literally like a dreamscape. It's really difficult to get to that plot point and to understand what that plot point through all of the insane visuals and non sequiturs and bizarre scenes that don't seem to make any sense. But I think that's. That was his way of concretizing the idea of reckless ambition in Hollywood and losing your identity in Hollywood. If you look at it with that perspective, you might find it a little bit more appealing. You certainly have to like Naomi Watts' performance because regardless of how chaotic the movie is, her performance is amazing and it made her a star. Jason Adams, can I read this one? Thank you for the $5 super chat, Jason. Death by Lightning on Netflix. The assassination of Garfield by some stand. The fan was decent, a bit campy and condensed history, but worth having that on. Oh, Michael Shannon, I think, plays Garfield. I would like to see that. Garfield was an interesting guy, Michael, and I think he would have made a very interesting president. I know one trivial fact about Garfield that I thought was very interesting. He could write simultaneously Greek and Latin with his left and right hands simultaneously.
Come on.
Nope.
I don't believe that.
Yep.
I believe it's been reported. I don't believe that he could actually do that.
Yep, he could.
No, that's codswallop. The human mind does not work that way. It cannot focus on two things at once.
I know people who can write with two hands at the same time. I do know that.
Two different things?
Yes.
I don't believe it. I got to see it.
I agree with you. But look, there are some extraordinary people, Michael, out there that have brain functions that you and I don't have. And I thank Dad for them, because they make our lives better. And in a capitalist society, folks, bringing us back to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, those people who are sort of a natural aristocracy, they have great talent and great abilities, and their brains are capable of doing things that ours aren't, benefit us tremendously, because they do the work and we benefit from it. We exchange our productive capacity with theirs and end up being the better for it. So I wanted to read something that you sent me from the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. It said, Republicans don't seem to have any priorities beyond populist stunts. This seems to be absolutely true. A slice, Democrats will run against Republicans next year on the cost of health care and enhanced pandemic-era subsidies for Obamacare. Republicans can dodge the subject and hope voters don't notice, which is a losing strategy. Or they could offer a health freedom agenda that would create more private insurance options. If any Republicans have been thinking about this, we haven't heard it. How about pro-growth tax policy? Republicans have a rare chance to use budget reconciliation again during this Congress to dodge the Senate 60-vote rule for tax and spending bills. The news here is that the Republicans don't seem to have any idea what they would put in such a bill. They won't index capital gains income for inflation, because that might seem as if they're helping the affluent. They won't cut spending because Democrats will object and call them mean. They won't try more welfare reforms for, well, the same reason. They won't even try to reform the budget process that automatically increases spending each year in the budget baseline. Yes. We not only have a Republican Party that has lost the classical liberal narrative, Michael, they have no cashews.
Okay.
They are castrati. No balls, man. They're castrati.
I know what you were saying, but what was that other word? But what was that word?
They are the castrati. They have no balls. They will not face an American public that has become dependent upon political largesse and put the American public in its place with the reality that this has to stop because it's unsustainable and immoral.
What they will do is engage in endless culture war garbage. That's what they will do. And that's what I was, I'm a little distracted by that comment, but so the Republican Party of old is gone. The Republican Party that Ted Cruz, I guess, wants to bring back, it seems, is gone. It's done. Now they are just simply welfare statists who happen to be on the right on culture issues. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. They've made their bones in the culture wars, Michael. Because
bones, but no cashews.
They have bones, but no cashews. Well, cashews are a soft tissue. Okay, so look, they've made their bones in the culture wars because the right, I think, felt disaffected. They felt excluded from the culture. They were on the outside for years and years and years, and not only on the outside, but belittled and condescended to by the left. And so now this is one giant revenge fuck with respect to them being pushed out of the culture, and that is almost their sole focus. Constitutionalism out the window. Restraints on government power out the window. Pulling back the deep state out the window, stopping spending, at least a spending freeze, for crying out loud, instead of continuous expansions, or cutting it by a few percentage points instead of just cutting expansions, out the window. All of that deregulation out the window. None of it has mattered. And I remember when Doge came in, when Trump introduced Doge and said, we're going to take $2 trillion out of the government. The world sort of said, this is very interesting. Let's see. Until those trillions of dollars meant something to actual people on the ground who were getting subsidized. And then Trump said, less of an axe and more of a scalpel. And it goes from 2 trillion to 1 trillion, from 1 trillion to 160 billion, from 160 billion to 16 billion, to now not even that. Who knows how much has been saved? It's certainly been offset by all the spending that the Republicans are doing in so many areas right now. So we're on track, folks, for a massive spending spree, a debt that will not go down, that's already, 110 times the gross domestic product of the United States. I mean, we're already spending $1 trillion annually on interest alone. This is an unsustainable course of events that can only be cured by one thing: not flooding the system with more money and more credit, which will only make things worse, but by cutting the government and reducing it to its actual purposes, which is to protect property and rights. That might not be a small government in the sense that we mean, in number, because we have a ginormous country. So the government can still be rather large, but still focus solely on the protection of individual rights and property, and not involve itself in business, interfere with pricing, get involved in banking, or any of the other numerous things that the government seems to get involved in now, creating distortions and dislocations that they then try to fix by creating more dislocations and distortions. So, Michael, what say you to all that?
What say I to all that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you're there.
Of course I'm here. Where the hell do you think I went?
I don't know.
I agree with you. We need capitalism. We don't need government dependence. We don't need cash being printed. We need capitalism.
Yeah, we've been on a massive spending spree, according to Deeper with Diego, massive spending spree. The pot's been boiling for nearly a century or more. That's for sure. Maybe the Democrats will feign small government inclinations for the midterms. Do you think that's true? I mean, they've been talking about constitutional violations of the executive, but are perfectly willing to do that kind of thing when they're in office. They're certainly right about the terrible immigration policy that's going on, but that's just a convenience because the person who happens to be in office. They still. Do you think they're going to come center right? They're going to try to pretend like they're fiscally conservative for the sake of gaining votes? It seems like the party is headed largely towards the extreme left, to democratic socialism as the ideal. And that's a morally consistent position for them to hold, and I think a winning position for them to hold if they're going to go up against Republicans who have mixed premises. As Rand said, in an argument between two ideas, the most consistent wins. And unfortunately for us, that means socialism could be on the march unless and until we get unapologetic capitalists out there promoting individual rights and the sacrosanct right to property and the inviolable right to property and constitutional limits on government. Somebody has to be unapologetic. That means they have to be unafraid of incurring the wrath of people who have become dependent on these systems right now, and on the parasitic political class who will do everything in their power to take them down and to maintain their position as rulers over the people. You sent me a very interesting article. We only have a few minutes left, but I wanted to touch on it a little bit because I hear this all the time. I hear the opposite of what the article says all the time. The article says sanctions didn't destroy Venezuela's economy, socialism did. Now I hear the communists all the time trying to paint Cuba and Venezuela as victims of economic sanctions and blockades by America. Had America not done those things, both of these communist countries would be thriving, but for American interference. Now, this article, which I think you should post, Michael, on X, it does an excellent job at showing that none of the sanctions leveled against Venezuela had anything to do with their rampant inflation, the contraction of their economy, the massive impoverishment of the people, the shortage of supply, or anything else that plagues a socialist country. It was simply socialism. Mostly it makes the point by demonstrating that a lot of these catastrophes happened before 2014, and 2015 was the first time in which Obama started sanctions in Venezuela, and it was solely against the ruling class. It was Trump who later on froze assets and put sanctions on Venezuelan oil. But by then, the damage had already been done. There had been a massive exodus of people from Venezuela who couldn't get toilet paper, for crying out loud, who were waiting in line for 48 hours to get gasoline. Michael, in a state with the most oil reserves in the world. That was pure socialism. Of course, the government was getting richer. The people in government were siphoning off whatever funds they could to put into their own private accounts and invest overseas so that they could become rich. This is no different than the Putins and the oligarchs in China and the oligarchs in the Middle East, the rich Hamas folks who are worth billions upon billions of dollars while producing absolutely no value for anyone. What do you think about this article, Michael? I think more people need to see it.
He actually has 5 stages that he says that socialist economies go through. I don't have them at my fingertips right now. Let's see if I can find them. But ultimately, I got it too. Ultimately, he points out, though, that the Venezuelan economy started to flounder before the sanctions ever took place. I used to get into arguments with people in prison about this. They would tell me the reason Cuba can't succeed is because of sanctions. And I asked them, well, why do you think why is America not failing then because of the sanctions? Why is Cuba the one failing? And of course, that's where the big blank out comes from. But he says there's 5 stages in socialist economies. He says they start off euphoric. They're so happy that they have the socialist economy. They get some peak prosperity where they appear to be succeeding. Then the reality check sets in. They collapse into misery and then stabilization of poverty and totalitarianism. So there you go.
And I think we're going to see some of those stages should Mamdani be able to enact his socialist policies in New York. Right now, we are in the euphoria stage where the people who elected him, the young folks who think socialism is still moral after all the historical evidence to the contrary, think they have won something and think that it's possible to fund all of this free stuff and that price freezes on rent is actually going to encourage building and that force in the marketplace is actually somehow going to encourage and incentivize people to build. Well, they're going to find that to be wrong. Of course, there'll be that moment of peak prosperity when the stolen goods from the 1% to 10% who haven't yet moved out of the state are exploited, and some of those resources are then redistributed to other people. But once they move out, folks, because yes, people will vote with their feet when they're taxed. It's not like they're going to sit around and get beat up for you. They will leave. Then the reality shock will set in, and when those empty shelves and the theft in government stores start to reveal the government stores' operations for being as ridiculously incompetent as they will be, the reality will set in. Let's hope that happens. So, Professor Kraken, again, thank you for the 50. I don't know what that is. Is that what currency is that?
Czech.
Love the Czech Republic. Heard a good argument about why Cuban regime survived when USSR failed, because they tolerate those freedom-minded escaping so they don't topple them. There you go.
Fair enough.
That makes a good deal of sense to me. Michael, do you have the capitalist thought of the day? Czech crowns. Thank you, sir.
Yes, I do have the capitalist thought of the day. The capitalist thought of the day is that capitalism requires order. that in order to have capitalism, our rights need to be protected. In a state of nature, as Ahab said, things would likely be solitary, nasty, poor, Brutus, and short, because you're at the whims of every brute with a club who comes your way. Under capitalism, we institute governments that are there to protect our rights, protect our freedom to trade. So in this case, it is the civilized, the smart, the reasonable that are allowed to thrive and not the criminals. So if we want to have capitalism, we need to have government, but we need to have a government strictly limited to protecting the rights of the people under its jurisdiction. That's what we need to push for. That's why we have the American Capitalist Party. That's why we do this show. Let's keep going. Let's keep fighting, and let's achieve the freedom that we crave.
And remember to visit American Capitalist Party at the AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Read the policies, and I guarantee you will find something refreshing in there for you, something very different from the current political discourse. My question for the day is, which you should answer on YouTube, folks, after you like and subscribe to this channel and then pass it on along all of your social media platforms. My question is, do you think there is any hope for the Republican Party? Do you think there is any hope for the Republican Party? I have my own opinions about it. I'd like to hear yours. So, folks, that ends the show for today. We will be here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. You have 23 hours to check your premises. If there's an ounce of statism in you, I hope we disabused you of your errors. And I hope you come back here tomorrow afresh, with an open and active mind, and ready to challenge the status quo, baby. Until then, peace.